Tuesday, June 27th. First up, minutes of the last meeting, which I read quick. Got rid of that thing.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, June 13th.
Okay.
Second it.
Second,
I did second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Informal, anybody here that's not on our schedule list want to talk to us? No? Ooh,
Yay. You like that?
Old Colonial Road, Ted Hatch. Oh, it doesn't look like Ted.
Good evening. Shannon Boomsma from White Engineering.
On a chair?
Our revised plans for you. Here on behalf of Ted Hatch, Sunnyside Acres. We talked at the last meeting, we did a site visit. Several of you were present at that site visit. And the revised plans reflect what we discussed at the last meeting and at the site visit. For those of you who were not there, I will go over it for you again. This is 6 Old Colonial Road. There's an existing house and a structure that was converted into a pool house and a swimming pool. They have a pond, and the 100-foot buffer zone runs around here. There's a bunch of pipes coming out from this pool work that carry groundwater and water from the footing for this new retaining wall. And we want to tie those together, discharge them down by the pond to a stone apron, and plant 3 dogwood trees down there. We have another pipe over here from the pool equipment area that discharges into the buffer zone currently. Originally, we wanted to tie that in, but discussions resulted in us cutting off that pipe and putting it to a stone dry well outside of the buffer zone. So none of that water is going to get into this new system.
Not a saltwater pool or anything?
It is a saltwater pool. Yep. There's an old drain pipe through here. There's a series of pipes and then some like holes, and then pipe goes into it, and then the pipe goes out through this area. It continues further up, but it's in the buffer zone. And we want to replace that with a solid pipe without these open basins and discharge that to this slope, which will be a rocky slope when this is done. This is going to be created with stones that are found on the property when they do these excavations, and create like a water feature and discharge it to the pond. This down here is kind of like a sitting area for them right by the pond. So that is our plan.
Any comments? I did not.
It looked fine to
Yeah, the project looks good.
me.
It's gonna be three dogwoods.
3 dogwoods. The only plants being removed is 1 dead tree here. The rest of this is this line will actually go through a mowed path.
Most of that area mowed now.
There's
Yeah, most of this is overgrown.
Here and there. It was fine.
Make a motion to close.
I'll make a motion to close.
A second.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Shannon.
Golf club.
Golf club.
What are we doing today?
Very popular.
It is popular.
I have a friend. He's in his 80s, took this up, right? His wife passed, he was bored. First or second time he fell, almost a concussion.
Oh my God.
Just
Pickleball?
recently, recently came back, he fell again, fell on his hip, he had his car fobs in his pocket, chipped his hip, so he's been hobbling around.
Dangerous too.
Pickleball.
Hopefully that doesn't happen.
No, I had a friend who dislocated his shoulder playing golf. He fell off an embankment and went. I don't know. Okay, so I have two unfamiliar faces over here. You are
Jeff Sella, I'm the Greens Chair of the Stockbridge Golf Club.
Jeff with a,
CLA.
with a J,
Yes.
and you are,
Tom Ruffing of the Tennis and Pickleball Committee.
spell your name.
RUFFING.
David had a,
Okay, thank you.
Got a promotion, huh?
Yeah.
Something.
I can ask a question?
Yes.
How come we didn't vote on Shannon after, how come we closed it, but don't we also vote then, or we have to
Yes, we
wait?
need to vote.
Should have, yeah.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Any opposed?
My bad. I gotta get back into.
You send him on vacation, you know.
What do you expect?
One whole meeting.
Is that vote for this project too?
No, still have to do it. Just
So where is the
All right.
pickleball court gonna be?
So we are two proposed pickleball courts. This is the existing tennis courts here. If you look at this plan, this is the clubhouse here. And then the tennis courts are here, and it's directly to the south of the existing tennis courts. And you can see the river is here and here, and the 200-foot riverfront is here. So we're outside of any buffer zone or riverfront or anything. But we are here because we're in the floodplain. The floodplain elevation is 827.25, I think, or something like that. And we're down at around elevation 821 to 822. And for the Wetlands Protection Act, in order to do work within the floodplain, you need to show that you're not causing any net fill in the floodplain area, foot by foot. In this project, we've set it down into existing grade, so it's very, very flat. The existing site is sort of, well, of course, we're off the wall right here. And we're setting it down about 5 feet south of the existing tennis court so that we can get it down into grade. So it'll be cut on this side of the court and fill on this side of the court. And then our earthwork calculations here show that we're matching cut and fill within the floodplain. And the whole entire project is within 1 foot of, there's no elevation change greater than 1 foot anywhere. So it meets the floodplain requirements. And that's,
How do you drain it?
it's just gonna be gently sloped at a 1%, per the pickleball court regs.
Tennis courts underwater, the pickleball.
Correct. Pickleball court will be underwater first.
Yeah.
And then the tennis court.
Golf course first.
Golf course first.
Yeah.
So the numbers you were mentioning before, you're saying sometimes it could be 7 feet underwater?
Well, the 100-year floodplain mapped is 827, I think 25, don't quote me on that. And we're down around 821, 822.
Okay, so
I'm not sure that number is realistic, though, those are from 1988, the data is.
But the annual floods we see down there, that would typically cover this?
Probably would, yeah, this will be inundated annually, don't you think? Yeah.
So
Not by
what's the
a lot,
surface?
but, asphalt, and it'll be cushion coat in case you fall, you won't hit your head. Yeah.
That's hard.
So can you comment on Mark Stinson's comments?
Yeah, I sort of did. The first one I think is for you guys. He was just saying that the order of conditions for the greens work we did was never sent to him. It's sort of a moot point. We did the work, we got a certificate of compliance, and the work is done. So it was just sort of him mentioning it. And then the other one was, he was saying that we needed to demonstrate that we weren't doing any net fill in the floodplain. I'm not sure where he was
Bordering,
confused.
he says bordering land subject to.
Right, same thing. And we have the chart here, all of the work is within a foot, so we're not sort of spanning more than 1 foot differential. So we have the data on the plan, and we did design it to meet that.
What's the size of a pickleball court?
This is 2 back to back, which is 120 by 30, so 60 by 30 if you were one court.
120 by. Court itself, I think is 44, and then you have 8.
20 by 44, the actual court, and you need some side space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and fencing all the way around like
We
a,
do, yeah. We have fencing tying into the existing tennis court, extending around.
And did you need anything from natural heritage?
No, not in natural heritage. There are areas outside of this. in
So it's
natural
not
heritage.
here.
Yep.
So the compensatory,
Right, that's what I was saying. The project has been designed to compensate for itself. We're pushing
Okay.
this court down in this court. We're essentially, it's very, very gently sloping in this direction. So we're down and cut here and a little bit of fill here, but they equal out.
So it's the same fill, you're just pushing it from one side to the other?
Correct.
You're not bringing anything in or anything out, it's just a,
Well, we'll be removing the topsoil because we don't want to build on topsoil and putting gravel underneath, but it'll be excavated down into the ground, not filling.
any pathways leading to this, or has anything changed? Other landscaping,
No, as of right now, when they come from the clubhouse, walk around the outside of the tennis courts to get to the pickleball, there'll be different gates so they can get into the courts.
but no change
At
of,
this time, there's no landscaping plan. Down the road, we might put some shrubbery in.
no blacktop paths or anything?
No.
Think of anything else? Anybody got any more questions?
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Make a motion if you would to close.
Please. Make a motion to close. All in favor?
you have a second? Wait.
I'll second it.
All in favor.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Good luck.
Question
Yeah,
before you leave?
Me?
Yes. Has Laurel Hill approached you about planting trees?
No, I just had a meeting about that today. I'm supposed to get a hold of, what's her name,
Hillary?
Hillary? I think it's Hillary, or,
Pat Flynn?
Jim Murray's daughter.
Just Toro.
Yes, yeah. I'm supposed to be getting in touch with her about planting some trees.
So you're slightly familiar with,
Yes,
all right.
yeah. So, I'll be in touch with her and see where we go from there as far as, the club's gonna decide if we get somewhere we put them and things like that.
Well, we pretty much are guaranteed that we're gonna get 40 trees.
Right,
We're just looking for appropriate locations.
great,
And then species, I don't know if we've got any, but it'll be native species.
yeah, okay,
And I know there's been a lot of willows that disappeared along the
yes, yeah, there has,
waterway. And
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
if it's appropriate to put some in there, you and Laurel
Okay.
will work out where and we'll work out when.
does somebody have a species list around that I could have, or?
We did
I can
not
just-
get one, did
I
we?
don't think we
I
did.
don't think
We'll get one to you.
That'd be great.
Do you have preferences?
Pardon me?
Do you have preferences of what you'd like to see?
Well, we've
Ones
got-
that don't have leaves that fall in the fall and no pine needles in the fall.
and
No
roots that come
acorns.
Above ground. Willows are not my preference, believe me. But we've got some beautiful sycamores on the property. Beautiful sycamores, and some that have been there for over 100 years, so.
So sycamores would be
Pardon me?
you would like sycamores?
Yeah, a couple of sycamores, I don't know where you've got them divvied up or where they're going, or,
We're
don't
trying to
have
find a place to divvy.
Yeah, you're the first to the trough, so mention anything you want. Not that it works that way,
most
but
of our trees are along the river, jump boxwood, and there's nothing real specimen or anything like that. We've got a few specimens, crab apples and stuff on the course.
Well, this is probably gonna be all native,
Okay,
so
okay.
Well, it will need to be all native.
anything from sycamores to maybe tulip or maple or oak,
Yeah.
swamp
Yeah,
oak.
we have some poplars, probably, 85-foot poplars on the property.
And for now, we'll probably have to wrap them with something so that
Okay,
beavers don't bite them.
well, that's gonna be a toughie.
Well, even,
We've had some beaver damage that's just unbelievable. Trees that are like this, and they've girdled them all the way around.
Wow.
yeah, that planting along the river is gonna be a issue, so.
Yeah. But yeah, club's very interested,
Okay, great.
okay? Yeah,
When we get a list, we'll give it to you and see what.
great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great summer.
So is there a special membership for pickleball only, or?
You know, honestly, Sally, I don't know how the club is gonna do that, if
Yeah.
it's gonna be a separate, because I know it's
So
so
popular.
It's so crazy, yeah.
It's crazy, yeah. So we're starting with 2, and then we have the 2 all-weather courts that they may someday make them dual use, much like you did here in town. It's a real fad.
I recently saw a news story, I think this weekend, where they're saying they're taking the abandoned stores out of the shopping malls.
Yeah, and
Putting
putting in
in
pickleball.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Oh,
It's the fastest growing sport in the country and really pretty international now as well.
Thanks, everybody.
It'll be an Olympic summer before we know.
All right,
Stop by anytime if you get a list or something.
we're gonna need a bench this year.
Oh, boy.
This year, not, well, by next year,
Okay,
next year.
we can do it over the winter.
Yeah.
Okay, great. See you
Thank you.
later.
Good night.
98 Interlaken Road,
Yes,
Ira
we
Gould.
have
tree removal.
and it looks like someone's on,
Karen.
I'm here if you have any questions about it.
Okay. Do you have any means to show us where on the property these trees are going to be removed from?
I assumed you all had a copy of the RDA we submitted with.
All
the
right, I got it.
maps
I
and
found
the
it. It's
photos.
here.
Okay.
So I had a question. Are they all dead?
The ash trees that are right along the water are definitely dying. The hemlocks are definitely dead. There's another ash that's a little further from the water that's near the house that is very dead. It definitely is a threat to the house. It's more just there's a lot of falling limbs too. So,
Are the ones that are along the water a threat?
I would say they're a threat because there's falling limbs. Yes.
Can we see them?
Sure, let's go take a look.
Yeah.
It's the one that's right next to the boat club,
Is that where it is?
just south,
Oh, we've been there
the
before.
property
we've
directly.
been there before, no?
I have.
No, well, not in a while.
I don't think I've been.
All right, so we'd like to make a site visit just to look at these trees. If someone is there, that's fine and good. If someone can't be there, mark the trees with ribbons, that type
They're
of thing.
already marked. They're all marked.
We'll try this for Friday.
1
All
o'clock?
right. They're marked with paint. Do you need them with ribbons?
No, paint's fine.
Okay. They all have marks on them.
Friday at 1?
30th?
Does one work?
One?
One works for me.
Does that mean that this will have to come up at the next meeting in July or?
Yes,
Yeah, we'll probably approve it then and
Okay, because I know Natural Heritage approved it. And so I think, do we only have 30 days once Natural Heritage approves it? Because we did file a MISA app. Yeah, we only had.
well, we have to go through our process, which involves a site visit.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. So it'll go on the next agenda?
yes.
Okay. And what's the date of that meeting?
July 11th.
July 11th. Okay. All right. So you'll be going over Friday. I just want to let the homeowner know. Any idea what time did you say?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. Okay.
Hopefully not rain, but shine. Okay.
Hey, Ron,
Yes.
would you, I might be helpful to clarify for the applicant, the 30-day MISA citation that she brought up. So when you submit one of those applications to the Natural Heritage Program, they have 30 days to respond. But that has nothing to do with the timeline that the commission has. So what
Okay, I
they,
knew we had
what they're,
there was 30 days involved. I didn't know if it's 30 days after or 30 days. Okay,
yeah, so they have 30 days to get back to you with a determination letter as to whether or not you're going to have an adverse effect based on what you're proposing.
got it. Thank you. Okay.
Hopefully that's helpful.
Yep. All right. I forgot that was what the 30-day window was. Okay. Then I will let the homeowner know and we'll see you next month.
All right, and John Fields is the proposed tree person?
Yes. Yes, we
Okay.
would be doing the tree work.
All righty. See you Friday at 1 PM.
Okay. Does somebody from our company need to be there?
It would be helpful always.
Okay. I'll try and figure that out. Okay. Who can I-
Basically, we're just gonna wanna know how you get in and out of there to get the trees removed. You know,
Okay.
stumps are gonna stay if it's close to the water.
Intact. Some of the trees, the hemlocks are just gonna be felled and left to naturalize because it's in the woods. The other trees, we're just gonna chip and take out and then just leave the stumps, obviously, to stabilize the
Okay.
base.
Those are the kind of questions we're gonna ask.
Regrowing.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you're gonna replant, depending on where you are.
I don't know that there will be replanting in that particular area, no. I don't know if John's gonna be able to be there. I will not be able to be there on Friday. And John is out of the country, so I'll have to touch base with him.
We do traditionally ask for replanting when trees are taken down, just so you know.
Close to the water. If you're over 200 feet,
There's some right in the bank.
no,
Some are right against it.
we might have
I mean,
some trees.
that whole area is just, it's a monoculture basically of the hemlocks and they're all the same age. And they're all coming down like in
One after another.
rows, yeah.
Okay, Friday. We'll discuss some more Friday.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, public hearing wise? No.
Well, we wanted to talk about did we want to talk about the proposed increase in harvesting that has been proposed, or do we want to wait till we have some sort of formal?
I'll just give a heads up, but I think we'll wait on this. SBA is looking to increase the area that they're permitted to harvest around, weed harvest around the lake. I just got this today. It's mostly on the north side of the lake and wasn't given a reason for the increased area.
How much?
We're not given a reason?
I haven't been given her, other than they want to do it.
Do we know how much?
7.9 to 9.7.
Yeah, it goes up almost 2 acres, which isn't a lot, but we'll discuss it.
Do they have a timeline?
You've got what I got.
They haven't
No.
filed anything yet. So
This is very
This
preliminary.
is just a heads up.
it's
Yeah.
something that they've been talking about.
So I couldn't print the map out and my computer wouldn't do it. I
Do you
have-
know why it came from SBA?
Well, they're the ones that were,
They've been asking to do it. Pat talked about it at the SBSC meeting. I am not sure. I think the
There
town
is
will
a
be,
pink.
the town will be the applicant, I believe.
Okay.
And
pass it down.
it sort of sticks out the Tanglewood Beach area, I have to say, for an entity which pays no taxes, does not pay in lieu of, and keeps telling everybody that they live in Lenox, and they don't. So I have some questions about that, frankly.
the town beach, where'd it go? Has 0.2240 acres that are harvested. The Tanglewood Beach, which is basically maybe 200 feet of waterfront,
Right.
wants 1.4212 acres.
It's interesting.
I don't see
Lovely-
the reasoning,
Lovely
but
song by the Rolling Stones, my opinion.
so we have some questions need answering and
It seems to me that the place where the most impact is on the south end of the lake, where the people are
Using it.
Weeded in.
dealing with the
Right.
with the lilies and everything down there. It would seem to me that giving relief to the year-round residents who, pay taxes in town would be a lot more important, at least to my way of thinking in terms of a priority, than an entity that has people who are transitory and they don't pay taxes.
and the other area that's right next to the Tanglewood Beach is of the whole Gould Meadow shoreline, which nothing goes on it.
Is this tied into the Josh for any reason? I just can't figure out why they.
I haven't got any explanation.
We don't, because the Josh,
They're outside the buoys, right?
yeah, the Josh, the canoe.
Inside.
Well, the only time that they're not outside the buoys is when the people are taking the canoes from the camp to Tanglewood.
Oh,
But that shouldn't make any difference. I mean, that wouldn't be the impetus, I wouldn't think, for this. I think we need to provide relief for the folks at the southern end of the lake who
Because in at the south,
get in and out.
we have more recreation, don't we?
We do, and
Town
we
beach.
have tons and tons of houses and,
And
Don't let me forget.
I noticed that Mackinac Shores, which is right next to Mackinac Terrace, is on the list.
yeah.
Yeah.
So those compounds, it would seem to me, are the ones that that they should be looking at to give priority.
Does Camp Mackinac give taxes?
Yeah, they're taxing.
Okay.
They're
I built a spreadsheet and just over 17% of all the value of land in Stockbridge is exempt. Now, whether it's a church or whether it's anything.
they're.
I don't know if that's normal or if that's high or low.
I think it's high.
Hi,
Is it? Okay.
it's really high.
But, you look at something like Boston and half the town is colleges. And that's a real problem for them.
Right. Thank you. Pass that.
Okay,
But anyway, I think we need some clarification on this.
and last week while I was gone, I got a call, an email, a text from Moose. Wants to know if he can add more sand to the Crapala Beach.
You said no?
I said, no. Said, let me come look at it. We'll look at it. So I got back and we went last Saturday at the beach. There had to been 45 geese on that beach. None of them could fly because the little ones were running around. There had to be 30 of those. Then there had to be more flightless adults. I wouldn't go in the water or walk on that beach barefoot if you paid me $100 an hour. It was disgusting. So I said, you know how you correct this is you do a planting. So I explained about the planting, the little openings to get to the water. The geese won't walk through bushes and stuff. So I said, if you can get that planting in, and I didn't say how far I stood. Sometimes it's 30 feet, but we'll just work with what you got here. And build a barrier for the whole lakefront so the geese don't come from the water up onto your nice lawn. And there was some 6x6 posts that laid flat that would kind of help the grass from the sand and stuff. I said, let's see what kind of design you come up with. If it creates any sort of barrier or not, then we can discuss what you do with the beach itself, because it'll be moved back from the water because right now it was disgusting. It was like mud, green mud. And I said, do a planting, we'll work your way back from the water, see how far back you get, and then we'll talk about if there's a beach that we can redo here. So he's gonna come in at some point and give us some sort of plan. The problem, and why Moose was doing this, because he's retired, he's not even part
I
of
was gonna
Capella
say,
anymore.
he's retired.
But they don't have a grounds person. They have 2 people to mow the lawn and 2 handy people to do other odds and ends.
For the town
The
beach.
whole property?
For the whole property.
Wow,
Oh, Kapala.
Yeah,
big.
Capella.
wow.
So they got nobody that oversees any of this stuff, and that doesn't seem to be a priority with the new CEO there. So things like the beach, like I said, it was disgusting. I said, if it rains, the E. coli is gonna get so bad here, you won't be able to get in the water. And there was enough rain today and yesterday, so it's probably, if they do a test down there, it's gonna be spiked. So if somebody's out on the water and take a ride around that way.
Yeah, we're there all the time.
Let's look at the beach. They're not gonna do anything till they come up with some sort of plan, but the CEO doesn't seem to be interested, so I don't know what they're gonna do now.
How would that plan work, Ron? So it's a band of native planting, it's a barrier 30 feet wide?
Well, even if it was 5 or 6 feet, and if it was dense enough, the geese wouldn't walk through it. Okay, they won't climb, they won't go through trees, because they take off in a straight line and they land in a straight line, and they're not too fast on the run, so.
So if you
They have to do some sort of planting that would keep the geese off except for wherever the opening is, and they can have a little gate that's spring on it that closes and opens and stuff, and that would keep the geese off there when they're not there, because I don't know what time people go down there. I've seen them early in the morning, though.
They have yoga on paddle boards and things.
Well, if you go out far enough, the water might be clean, but it's
Yeah.
not near shore.
But imagine trying to haul your paddleboard through that.
Yeah. And there's probably 30 kayaks on the beach too, so they could, line them up so they could get them right out and through, but.
Well, that'd be a smartest idea.
So 10 feet or so, you have a little.
Whatever.
Good start.
They gotta do something before we can talk to them about a beach.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a beach. They got a pig pen. That's basically what it was. So,
It's too bad.
yeah, if somebody's going by that way on the water,
Take a look.
take a look.
Well, it was a good idea. What was the reception again? They don't want to do it? How would you categorize that?
It's not a priority. They don't have the help even.
Like everywhere else.
Yeah, they're looking for, he said, anybody who wants to work doing anything, we got openings. So, but they haven't said as a grounds person, manager, as any sort of priority. So the guys that mow the lawn run down there and go across with the lawnmower and off they go to somewhere else, and that's all they do.
Moose was really the driving force behind that whole operation. I mean, he did that whole field of native flowers, wildflowers, and
Yeah.
he really cared about the grounds. And since he got sick and then retired, it hasn't.
Well, actually,
They
when
haven't-
COVID came, he got laid off.
Yeah, but he
was gone in the
He
next
was
month or
not
two,
well, anyway.
Because no one lays
Do you
here.
have anything?
So that's gonna be on the agenda, I don't know when though. This might be December, or who knows. Anything else? Anybody else have anything?
You have National Grid.
Yeah, National Grid, they got in touch with me about how they wanted to know where their order of conditions was. And I said, well, we hadn't finalized. We were still waiting to finalize the planning plan, so we haven't signed that yet.
Did we get the letter from the railroad?
No. Oh, from the railroad?
Yeah.
Trying to remember. I think we did.
Chuck, did you GPS located all the major
No, I didn't walk the tracks again. On the back of the pictures, I showed where a few of them were, but I think it's the amount that was missed the second time we went down the tracks was just huge. So on the few pictures I have is yes, but not for what is out there in total.
The amount that was missed by,
Well, the first time we made the run, the flora, the foliage was not that full. And 3 weeks later,
yeah,
it was a different jungle. And there was so much cover. So yes, I've got like 4 or 5 big piles that, but I'm confident there's a whole lot more. And I have visions of walking the tracks myself in the last 2 weeks. I just have not done it.
The fire chief is interested.
Okay.
The fire chief is interested
The location of these creosote,
because they're fire hazard.
yeah.
I'll send that over to you.
Okay, thank you. Or even if you wanted to stop in sometime and talk to him, we're
Perfect.
when he's there, the red car's out front.
Okay.
All right, to sign?
so while we were waiting for a letter from them saying that how they were going to remove them. That was what they had.
They were not guaranteeing that that's what they were going to do, if you remember. They were saying that they were going to, that the lawyer was going to write to them and get the information, but I don't think, he wasn't making any promises.
I thought he did.
He said he'd make a phone call.
He said he'd make a phone call.
So that was the promise.
Right, and he wasn't
That's
sure
why
if
I
the state
said
was
no on
responsible
this one.
or if he wasn't sure who was responsible.
But he was going to find out who was
He was
responsible
gonna find out who's responsible and then make a phone call
and tell,
and ask if they could have a conversation with us. It's the way I comprehend.
but I thought he
recall
was
it.
putting it in writing who, he was going to find out who was
Yes, he was
responsible
gonna
and
send
let
us
us
a
know.
note, but yes.
So he hasn't done that.
So we could set up a meeting with them in here?
If we get hold of him.
Wasn't he also going to check to see whether the contractor that had done the most recent work was also responsible for cleaning up
Yes.
the older piles?
Right.
That would make sense right there.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first piece, and then otherwise talking to this Mass DOT that now owns the right of way.
So I put in the determination of applicability, and you may or may not agree that this is the way to go forward doing this. In which case we don't need to sign it, we won't sign it. I said, an agreement of good faith shall be forthcoming from Mass DOT describing its intention to remove toxic piles of creosote laden discarded ties along the right of way.
Could you make a trade, and take care of that paperwork when they take care of their problem?
Well, I'm not opposed to that, but we don't know that Mass DOT is agreeing to do it. I mean, he couldn't commit, the lawyer couldn't commit.
No, but they're asking us to give them a negative determination, and we're still waiting for those railroad ties to be removed that we've been asking them to remove for years.
Or a letter of good, or a show of good intent, that's the game.
Exactly, that was my point.
Can you say it again?
I said, an agreement of good faith shall be forthcoming from Mass DOT describing its intention to remove toxic piles of creosote-laden discarded ties along the right-of-way. You can reword if you hate it.
No, I'm just thinking, the RDA is with the railroad, so I don't know that that's binding to Mass DOT.
Well, they're the applicant, are they not? If they're the ones that maintain the right-of-way?
The state owns all that.
But to your point, the RDA has come from the Hoosisack Railroad
Yeah.
to maintain the foliage for safety purposes. We are kind of, to the lawyer's point from 2 weeks ago, we are kind of trying to mix two things together that aren't precisely related. And, Hoosisack Railroad has some serious rights to be able to do the spraying. And we're in our frustration, we're trying to leverage the whole tie business, but still, they are kind of unrelated items.
So you're saying that we should move forward and be more harder next year if they just try to kick the can?
We've been kicking the can for 20 years.
No, I understand. David, do you have a thought about that?
I think if you haven't, it's been 2 weeks since we discussed this, correct?
Correct.
And they haven't provided anything.
Correct.
Correct.
So that seems like that's consistent with the 20-year pattern. They'll tell you something to make you feel warm and fuzzy, and then they won't do anything about it.
It didn't feel much warm and fuzzy.
If the commission is convinced that there's actually been a violation, and I'm not doubting that that's the case, and the commission wants to try to get some response to that, I think the commission should consider issuing an enforcement order. And that enforcement order could go to multiple parties. If the responsible parties in question, you could issue the enforcement order to Housatonic Railroad or whoever the applicant is for this current RDA, and you could issue it to Mass DOT and see where it ends up.
It sounds like the railroad is taking over the maintenance aspects of this deal. And, by doing the spraying, replacing the ties.
Or,
So they're the ones that maybe you'd start with, wouldn't it?
Although
I think you need to document the violations. And it sounds like, did you ride along the rail with these guys to see where they actually went to do the spraying?
Yeah, twice. Oh, yes, twice.
So it's this is a little bit tricky, right? Because in order to issue an enforcement order that's got some teeth to it, you've got to get on site and you've got to document the violations. And unfortunately, the only way to get on site and document the violations is have these guys give you a tour of the rail line, right?
He did.
Chuck took pictures.
He's got pictures with GPS.
So the first time, I didn't take a bunch of pictures. The second time, when all the flora was out, I took some of the piles that we could find, but there were still large piles and large amounts that were not seen. So this is going to be I believe this will be a multi-year event.
Okay. So
I think every year we're going to find new piles to be dealt with.
Okay. So Chuck, do you have photographs
Yes.
that show conclusively that there are abandoned creosote soaked ties either in resource areas or in buffer zone?
Yes.
Okay. And you can GPS locate those on a map?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's all you need to issue an enforcement order that's got some teeth to it. And I think it's okay if you issue it to more than one party if it's unclear who the current responsible party is.
so when we talked about enforcement orders before, we made the suggestion that prior to issuing an enforcement order, we either contact them nicely or send a nice letter short of an enforcement order. I don't know if it makes sense
I
to do
think we've
that.
pretty much done that.
I think we've pretty much
It
done.
sounds like you've done that for 20 years.
Okay.
So are you suggesting I should take out that sentence in the determination?
Well, I think you've got two different things going on. You've got the current proposal in front of you to just do the annual or, routine herbicide spraying to control vegetation so stuff's not growing on top of the railroad tracks and creating a safety hazard. You could go ahead and issue that, right? You could issue the determination that the commission intends to issue, I guess, for that. And on a parallel path, you could issue an enforcement order. So you keep the rail going and safe and keep things moving along so you're not jeopardizing safety or health. And at the same time, you could issue an enforcement order to try to get some resolution to this thing that evidently you've been trying to deal with for 20 years.
Do you think they're mutually exclusive?
I think at this point they are, right? Because what we tried to do at the last hearing is say, listen, guys, we've we've been trying to get you to respond to our concerns for 20 years now. Here you are again, coming in front of us, seeking permission to do something, seeking formal permission from the Concom to do something. But you've completely ignored us for 20 years on this issue that's really important to us. Can we do all this stuff at once, right? Can you take care of this? And it doesn't appear that they're willing to do that, or they're not able to do that because they don't have ownership, an ownership interest in the property or whatever. So maybe you just decouple these things from each other and make a decision on the current herbicide application in front of the commission. And then at the same time, resolve this violation thing formally with an enforcement order.
So you're suggesting I should take that sentence out before we send it?
Well, you would have expected that they would have gotten back to you by now, right?
Would think so, yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think if you, Sally, if the commission is serious about this and the commission wants to put together an enforcement order, and I'm happy to work with you on that, then you don't need that passage in the determination.
All right, well, I could just reprint that page without that in that case.
All right, so we'll do that, send him a copy of what we have. Look it over.
All right, so we're gonna
Give him
take out.
or else.
Gonna take out that and then just, I'll reprint that page without that sentence in it.
So we'll sign this so they can do the spraying, but we'll issue an enforcement order. That Dave will help to write.
Yeah, that way the commission and the town is not going to get accused of like creating unsafe conditions on the rail bed, right? Because you don't want that. The town and the commission does not want to be accused of creating unsafe conditions. But you can still deal with this other thing the formal right way, which is to issue an enforcement order.
Okay,
So I have
apparently our fire chief is also hot and bothered about this too. So there's public safety issues that are beyond just our concerns about polluting the resource area.
I think if you can get a letter from the fire chief that indicates that this is a public safety hazard because of these ties, and tack that on as an appendix to the enforcement order, that doesn't hurt. I think that's quite helpful.
Can you do that?
Yeah. In years past, when I was on the fire department, they had a brake lockup down in Great Barrington. And there were little fires all the way from Great Barrington up to Lenox. And a couple of those piles caught on fire. And there was a lot of hose laid out trying to get down to put those out. So,
I've had to, I only feel comfortable giving the commission guidance on this is because I've had to deal with these types of issues with railroads, various railroads in the past, both as a consultant and as a regulator. And they're all different. Some of them are very conscientious and diligent about the stuff they do, and others feel like these federal Commerce Clause exemptions gives them carte blanche to do anything they want. And that's not what those exemptions actually do. Those exemptions are in place to make sure that those rail lines keep moving constantly and goods can move from one state to the other. They are not intended to allow them to dump a bunch of trash and debris in wetlands and rivers and streams. And if that's what they've been doing, you have, full authority to take enforcement as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what do you need from me at this point? I mean, I have a bunch of pictures. I'll plot them on a map for you.
Yes,
Yes.
And get them over to you.
yeah,
next
with
24
GPS
hours.
locators.
Right.
Yeah,
Now, when I say GPS locators, really what it is you're probably aware, right? It shows on the map where all the
Right,
pictures are taken.
right.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
if you go into the detail, you probably can't actually find the GPS
You're
coordinates.
probably right, yeah.
Yeah, I think having the actual coordinates would be really helpful.
Okay.
If you have info on that.
All right, we need to vote on signing,
On issuing an
issuing
enforcement
the
order.
enforcement order.
Okay,
Second, anyone all in favor?
who said yes?
I second.
Lisa.
Okay.
Okay, now, which one is this?
All in favor?
Oh,
All in
yeah,
favor.
All in, yeah, we already did that. All in favor? Then we have the,
Aye.
all in favor, aye. I'm getting ahead of myself. Then we have the spraying request.
We already did that.
Which we.
Yeah, we did.
We voted on it
approved?
last week.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's all been
So
done.
this just has to be signed.
Could I ask one more question on spraying?
Yeah.
Yep.
To Dave. So there was an article in a Connecticut paper a couple of weeks ago about the same railroad in Cornwall, Connecticut, and with the same lawyer. And they negotiated for minimal spraying, hand pulling and mowing. Have you seen that in other places? Are you seeing that?
Well, it may be because and I don't know, because I don't know the Connecticut regulations on this particular subject, but they may not be as prescriptive as they are in Massachusetts. The regulations do give these railroads a lot of flexibility to apply these things. Actually, there's some guidance on this, and I can dig it up, and I can should be able to dig it up and give it to the commission. I helped work on it when I was at Mass DEP because I dealt with a lot of these, dealt with a lot of complaints from commissions who were convinced that the consultants and the railroads were not doing what their obligations were with respect to these specific RDAs. And so we developed a guidance document that spells out how all this stuff is supposed to work. So I will try to dig that up and I will email it to
That would be great.
all of you.
Awesome.
But you're going to have to sit with it. You're going to have to really read it and sit with it because it's fairly complicated. So I don't know how much flexibility the Stockbridge Concom has to ask the railroad to pull back on what they would normally do with these herbicide sprayings, because the Massachusetts regulations are pretty specific about what they're allowed to do. If I were you guys, I would concentrate on trying to resolve the historic dumping of debris in wetlands and not worry so much about the herbicide application.
Okay. Thank you.
But there's been
Unless you think they're not doing it consistent with what the regulations say they're allowed to do.
no, I think they've been okay with that. They've allowed us every year to look and see where they have their markers that indicate low spray or no spray. They've been pretty good about that.
Except they put in on the track this year, so the markers weren't really there anymore.
Well, they're completely missing, but they were very, they told me that the run we made together, they actually increased the amount of no spray. When I brought up, well, you mean that's not wetlands? I go, maybe it isn't. So they said the map has been increased for the amount of places where they're not spraying. What they claim.
So that's a good thing.
Right.
Okay, good.
And the fire is getting hotter for glyphosate. More and more, it's being, the ambulance chasing lawyers are running around behind people saying, if you've got Hodgkin's lymphoma, let us know. And
I know.
and it's banned in Europe. It's, what you just sent me something the other
Sent you
day.
a few things.
Yeah.
Board of Health.
It's just, that was it, the Board of Health.
Yeah, I know. And those concerns, Sally, those resonate with me too. As a citizen of the Commonwealth, those concerns resonate with me. But unless or until the governing agencies in Massachusetts decide to ban the use of it, and as far as I know, their glyphosate is still completely approved. And I think the agency that governs that is the Department of Agricultural Resources, the DAR.
Some towns are tackling it through their Board of Health. It's hard for the Concom to tackle it, but some are having boards of health issue more steps before it can be used.
Yeah.
Don't know how effective it will be, but
I think the concerns are completely valid,
Oh,
personally.
I do too.
It's difficult when you have the governing state or Commonwealth agency that's completely approved these things. You know.
And common sense says, are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
You go to any hardware store
Yeah,
or,
Oh, yeah.
or a big box store.
Right.
Buy it
And
by the
that's
gallon.
that's where the attorneys are wreaking havoc or making their money. I don't think they'd be able to do anything with a railroad.
No. There's a woman in town who has a daughter. She lives along the railroad. She has a daughter who has all kinds of health issues that she attributes directly to
The spray.
the spray that's right near her property. And she swears that it's contaminated her well. And she's been trying to fight that for years and got nowhere.
Okay.
All right, so Mackinac Shores, Bill, you asked about hand pulling. I asked David about hand pulling and he wasn't sure. But
I can
Mark,
elaborate on that.
Okay,
And I think Mark's going to get back to you.
Mark is going to get back to us tomorrow with guidance.
So I will tell you what I know about this particular subject. And I know that there have been a lot of nonprofit environmental organizations, especially, that have lobbied the Commonwealth to come up with some kind of streamlined process that allows them to get a bunch of volunteers on, say, a Saturday and go pull water chestnuts from a river or a lake or pond without having to go through the permitting process. And it's not an unreasonable request, right? Because if they understand what the target species are, they can identify them. It's difficult to say there's going to be a negative impact to resource areas by going in and hand pulling invasive species. We would all think that that's a good thing, right? That's a positive thing for the resource area. So the problem is the way the regulations are written says if there's an alteration to a resource area, you're supposed to file a notice of intent. Now, I think a lot of Comcoms are doing this type of thing. If someone wants to hand pull aquatic invasives, or if they want to just remove upland invasives in buffer zone or BLSF or riverfront, they do it under an RDA. And they seek a negative determination from a commission that says, yes, we recognize you're going to alter a resource area, but it's not going to have a negative impact. I think some towns, I know some towns for sure, and if you go on the MACC website, and if you look at their resources link, you will see certain towns that have what they call a so-called administrative approval, which is kind of like an RDA light, where things like this are approved, and I don't know exactly how they do it, but they do it either with a letter or a wink and a nod or an email, and they give people permission to do things like remove invasive species or say cut down one tree that's about to fall on their house with a so-called administrative approval. Certainly not sanctioned by DEP or the regulations, but it happens in practice and a lot of commissions do it.
This would be done by a company, so it's Aquatic Resources. So they're theoretically people who do this and will not, it's not going to be stuff they're not supposed to.
Okay, so there's been planning that's involved in this particular project that you know about. So I guess if you want to do it the proper regulatory way, what is the obstacle to them just submitting an RDA and seeking a negative determination? Is there one?
Other than, I think, timeline. I mean, they've also done, I mean, the same organization has been pulling the chestnuts out of the outlet jointly between Stockbridge Bowl Association and the town. They did that last year. They're doing it again this year.
Yeah, you did it a few days ago.
So, I mean, there is, and part of the time pressure is, when I talk to the woman, she says, they try to do stay in one lake for like a week's time so they're not cross contaminating. They leave the lake, they clean all their equipment before they move on to a different lake. So they do try to clump stuff together. And I think
And they're there right now?
And
So
my
there- so there-
understanding is be there this week.
There are a number of ways to do this, right? You could, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just laying out the options, okay? One is called enforcement forbearance, which is you just look the other way. You know what happens, or maybe you don't know what's happening, you just look the other way. And people just do what they want to do. Another one is they submit an RDA seeking a negative determination. Another option is they submit an NOI seeking an order of conditions to hand pull invasives of whatever species anytime they want to, and they get it extended every 3 or 5 years. So they only have to come in front of the Conservation Commission once, and they get to keep doing this over and over and over again, and they don't have to deal with the process other than once. So I think those are the options the commission has.
There's been no problems with those three options? There's nothing coming back at you for, say, 3 years of approval?
I think the difficulty with this type of thing is, I mean, first of all, you want to be even-handed. You want to treat all applicants the same, right? If they're working in your jurisdiction and you're requiring a notice of intent or an RDA, it shouldn't matter what the type of project is. You want to be even-handed so that the commission seems fair. It's clear that the commission is being fair, right? One of the potential pitfalls with an administrative approval or looking the other way is they end up doing something completely different than what you think they were going to do or what you thought they were going to do. And then when you call them on it or confront them about it, they say, oh, well, the commission said we could do this. And because there's no paper trail or no record or no order of conditions, you've got absolutely no recourse to get reparations if they do something other than what they claim they were going to do.
So that seems the lesser of all the evils. That's the one that you should avoid if you possibly can.
The greater of all the
The
evils.
greater.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say that if something is very prescriptive, say, let's just use water chestnuts as an example. If an applicant comes in front of the commission and says, we're seeking a negative determination to hand pull, to wade into the water or use a boat and hand pull an easily identifiable, indisputable invasive species, it's not going to impact Stockbridge Bowl or whatever water body. And I think the commission can issue a negative determination that is sound and solid, right? It's the same way you can issue a negative determination for someone installing a dock.
So can
on
we,
pilings.
actually, Patrick wanted to say something, then I was just going to say, can we do an emergency RDA to get it through this week so that you can?
Well, I mean, you look at the language for an emergency certification. It says it needs to, I think, paraphrasing, it needs to be an imminent threat to public health or safety.
Okay.
Does that meet that metric?
No.
No. Patrick,
Yes.
Patrick.
Look, it's my understanding this problem started a little bit in the outlet, and that the cubic or the spread of this is geometric in nature. And if we're already having a problem now at the clear other end of the lake, especially in the context of the fact that we're harvesting, which has a chance of spreading vegetation, if this is something that the commission wants to either get an RDA on, or I think the best idea is a 3 to 5 year notice of intent by the town. I think you should give the town a year, and I think you should do the wink and the nod for this year, but let the town know that next year, you'll have all winter to put in place, the notice of intent that you need, but this is a clear and present. Doing nothing is far more dangerous, in my opinion, than giving the town 6 months to put together an NOI. Yeah, or I'm sorry, doing nothing here could have significant long-term impact.
We already permitted the removal of the water chestnuts.
We did.
We permitted that, so that's been done. This is, this isn't water chestnuts, this is just,
This is invasive species in front of the public.
right, so it's around their docks, so it's, milfoil and God only knows what else.
Certainly Eurasian milfoil.
Yeah, milfoil. So this does not have this is the pervasive invasive, rather than the really bad, like critical problem invasive. So I always feel whenever anybody asks me how I think they should proceed, and I always tell them, I'm only one member of the commission, so I don't have the final say, but this is what I would do, is I would file for an RDA. And I would have with the RDA, the description from aquatic, whatever they are, resources, saying this is how we're going to do it and this is what we're going to do, so that you have what you suggested, David, which is you have a paper trail with limitations of what the plan is, so that if it goes south, you have the paperwork you can refer to and say, this is what you said you were going to do. This is not what you did. We issued the negative determination based on this information that you gave us, and you didn't do that. So now you have to fix it. So that's my suggestion anyway.
Well,
for this.
Think about just consider some of the applications that come in front of the commission, whether they're RDAs or NOIs. You have people coming in front of the commission proposing to put tiny additions onto existing houses in lawn that might be 80 feet away from a resource area. And I've seen the commission deliberate on these things for significant amounts of time. And so if someone wants to actually go into Stockbridge Bowl and rip out plants, you think if you want to be even-handed, you've got to at least look at these things the same way, right?
Right. Well, that's why I always want to have paperwork.
Yeah, the paperwork says, look, we want a prescription of the means and methods to do what you're going to do. That way we can hold you to it. And if they don't do what they commit to doing and what you approve, then you have some recourse. You can take an enforcement action or something else.
Yeah, we'll often ask for a letter from like an arborist or whoever that would describe how the work is going to be done and what they're doing. And I wouldn't feel comfortable without having that paperwork.
Well, but I think what I sent you was the proposal that they were going to do for the work in our area. And they surveyed it last summer, so I think it's pretty detailed.
So it might be fine as it is, but it's not been filed.
Wrapped as an RDA, yeah.
Patrick, have they already started the water chestnut?
Yeah. I think that they've been, was it the end of June? I thought that they had started it.
They started a few days ago. They pulled 100 and something plants for last year. In that same area, they pulled 700 plants. And then shortly, weather appropriate, they'll be going back in and doing further down the channel from about my place down to the overflow. For last year, they pulled 55 plants out of that area.
So
they went from the island around.
What's the number they pulled last year?
Last year, they pulled 700 and change. Today was 105.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said it.
Holy shit.
So it was successful, the pulling from last year.
Yes, the difficult part is because the seeds which I brought in last so long, they have to survey the waters for 10 years after they pull the last plant. Because that's why they have to burn the seeds. They say, they can come back to life. They're a monster.
So 700 to 105 is good.
Yeah, yes.
But next year could be 105 again or 55.
Yeah.
And if you don't get those 55, then
It starts again.
Patrick, you had a question?
It just, yeah, you talked earlier when you talked about the glyphosate, whatever it is, about the big box stores. And the town has long suspected that some frustrated abutters might be doing the same thing, which is getting the pond weed control at stores and dumping it around their docks. And I would just suggest to you that policies that reinforce things like hand pulling rather than encourage frustrated abutters to take frustrations into their own hands are really good for the lake and really good for the town. And I'm not telling you that we shouldn't do what you're talking about doing, but I do think that what we've seen, and you can kind of tell the areas where this has been done sometimes, because all of a sudden there's no vegetation in
Oh,
those
yeah.
areas.
If you don't have harvester, there's no missing it.
Yeah, so just, I think that trade-off or challenge might want to inform kind of how rigorous an approach you want to take to, folks who want to.
We've seen empty containers of
Yeah.
herbicides.
You're mostly my point, yes.
At people's houses around the lake. People who should really, really not be doing that and know better, I might add.
So, you know what I'm saying, it's like the more,
Right, I mean, to me, it's the same kind of thing as disposing of mattresses and things. We make it so difficult for people to get rid of stuff, and then they dump it in the woods. So if we make it too difficult for them to do this kind of work, then they're gonna dump the stuff in the lake anyway. But by the same token, I think we would be negligent if we just said, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want to do.
That's it.
So.
Can they get an RDA by the next meeting?
I'll talk to them. I'll try to work with them.
I mean.
So, the other question is if Aquatic Roots were to submit an NOI, you prepared in the winter as an ongoing project to cover the bull, would that give them the kind of authority that they needed to do that ongoing work on an ongoing basis and not, specific project or plot by plot?
I would think that I would think, David, should there be some sort of area beyond which they shouldn't be doing this kind of, that it gets, because I don't want to run afoul of DEP. Because they have very specific, restrictions on the harvesting and stuff, and I don't want to be, they've only are allowing a certain amount of harvesting to be done in the lake, and it's very minimal in my opinion, but
Yeah.
and we've had this whole hoorah with them. I don't want to get into conflict with them over permitting something like this. If we could make some kind of random but sensible, like 30 feet out, or that's not where you can't get the harvester in the first place, which is, I think, why the people are frustrated, because the harvester can't get in that close. And they want to get the weeds away from their docks, and so they don't hang up in the propellers of their boats. Is there some, would you recommend, a certain distance from the shoreline that this kind of activity could happen without interfering with other permits?
So I'm just bear with me. It's a lot of stuff to process. First of all, I can't comment on anything that I had to do with when I was at DEP, because I'm conflicted out of that stuff.
But
So
you,
the herbicide application of the bowl, I can't get involved with.
But you know what the process was for them to make the decision.
Yeah. So this is what I would offer up, and I'm kind of thinking out loud, but I think this might be able, I hope this is helpful. I think it's helpful. So there is a limited project, got the regulations right here. I'm gonna find it, I'm gonna read it. And I think this may be helpful. It's not an ecological restoration one. That's a very tricky, complicated one to do this stuff under. But there is one for water dependent uses. Maintenance of water dependent uses. Well, there's one for the maintenance of beaches and boat launching ramps, which existed in 1983. Bear with me. Okay, so this is 310 CMR 10.533 subpart L. The construction, reconstruction, operation, or maintenance of water-dependent uses. Provided, however, that one, any portion of such work which alters a BBW shall remain subject to the provisions of the BBW performance standards. Doesn't sound like that's the situation. We're talking about, if I understand correctly, we're talking about people having specific concerns about weeds growing around their docks that are in Stockbridge Bowl. Is that correct? Because it's getting caught in the propellers. It's just a mess. Okay.
Yeah.
So part one doesn't matter. Two, such work in any other resource areas found to be significant to flood control or prevention or storm damage shall meet the performance standards. Okay, that's not a problem because you're already in the water. And three, adverse impacts from such work in any other resource area shall be minimized regarding the statutory interests for which that resource area is found to be significant. So what that, in a nutshell, what that limited project allows an applicant to do is keep an area free of aquatic vegetation that would otherwise interfere with pre-established or new water-dependent uses. So if someone wants to have an area of Stockbridge Bowl around their dock that's free of aquatic weeds for, say, I don't know. I mean, they would have to make the case for what their water dependent use is. And it's got to be reasonable. Maybe it's 20 feet or 30 feet, certainly not 200 feet, right? They could apply using that limited project for a notice of intent that theoretically they could get renewed every, the commission could issue an order of conditions for 5 years, and that could be renewed every 5 years in perpetuity, theoretically, if the commission decided to do that. And it would allow those homeowners to clear an area completely around their docks, a prescribed area that the commission can review and approve. Now, that's just on a case-by-case, lot-by-lot basis. And it presumes that someone has a legal water-dependent use, such as an existing dock that has a waterways license. I think that would be perfectly good evidence that you've got a pre-established water-dependent use. There's another tool that's used by municipalities, and I haven't even asked the question yet, who is the applicant for this hypothetical project? Is it the town or is it the Stockbridge Bowl Association? That's an important question.
It's a
Homeowner.
private
Homeowners
association
Okay.
of homeowners.
Okay, that's so Stockbridge Bowl Association?
No, it's a, there are various associations around the lake.
Okay.
There's,
Okay, so
this
separate
one
one.
is, yeah.
Okay, so have
It's
you?
It's a subsect, if you will.
Okay, so I don't know if you've worked with the circuit rider, Mark Stinson, on bundled notices of intent for highway departments or
Yes.
DPW. Have you worked on those with him?
Yeah, not often, but we have done it.
So it's a concept which allows for, and I don't know if it's transferable to this at all. I'm just, again, I'm thinking out loud, and it may be something you want to get some, I would suggest you get some feedback from Mark Stinson on this. But a bundled notice of intent allows a town to do all sorts of routine maintenance on infrastructure throughout the entire municipality under a single notice of intent. And I guess I wonder if the same type of tool could be used to do this for a bunch of different separate homeowners who want to do the same exact thing, which is just clear aquatic weeds from directly around existing water dependent uses. Meaning it maybe it could be done under a single notice of intent instead of every single one of those property owners having to file their own.
Could the Stockbridge Bowl Association perhaps act on behalf of the property owners?
I would think that it would ought to be something that the town undertakes.
And I think one thing that nobody has said is propellers is one thing, but I think what's even more desirable with people with docks is to be able to swim. So the boats can power their way through. I think it's really the swimming, which I assume is what most people are concerned with.
Yeah, I would agree.
Right.
So that means that, again, the geographic extent of that water dependent use needs to be defined, and it needs to be defined within reason, right?
20 feet from your dock.
Right, so I work on, unfortunately, because these are really complicated, I work on other lake and pond management issues for other conservation commissions as well. And, applicants need to be realistic when they define the geographic extent of what their water dependent use is, right? It can't reasonably be like an entire water body, right? You can't claim that 300 acres of a 300-acre lake, every square inch of it is a water dependent use, because that would give you pretext to nuke all the vegetation and the entire thing.
Right.
Which is that's not reasonable, and it's not ecologically sound. If somebody has an area in front of their shoreline and next to their dock that is routinely used for swimming, and it's a reasonable sized geographic area, I don't think it's a stretch to say that we like to control aquatic vegetation in here because we can't swim without being impeded in this little box, whatever that box is.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And it would seem that it, I don't know if the town is, has any desire to do such a thing, but it would seem that maybe being able to get a blanket notice of intent for residents around the lake to clear around their docks, maybe 20 or 30 feet for swimming, with hand pulling, but I think.
About floating docks, though.
But there's not gonna be, how much
That one out
abuse, you get a floating dock, you're deep enough
Yeah.
where the weeds don't even play a role.
So like, your dock can only be 20 feet out.
25 feet out.
So do we extend the swimming area from the 25-foot zone to wherever your dock is? That could be,
Well, possibly.
depending on the depth of the water, that could be 100 feet.
Yeah, but there's gonna be a lot of, you're gonna have to hire a pretty big crew to pull that much. I don't think there's gonna be too much abuse by people pulling weeds around the docks. I mean, I don't think they're going out there by hand and pulling 50 feet off the shore.
It'll be too deep for
Right.
them to do that.
I mean, this might be the kind of thing that perhaps the town, and if you've got an existing relationship with the Stockbridge Bowl Association, that you guys send a couple of representatives and have a pre-application meeting with DEP and say, hey, is this something that we can tackle either as the town or as SBA, which is we want a single permit to allow people to manage aquatic vegetation just around their shorelines and their docks, not way out in the bowl, just for these very specific water dependent uses, and see what they say.
Right, because a hand pull is not gonna be any deeper than chest high water.
No, they've got rakes you throw out and drag.
They use a
basket.
boat, they
Yes.
use scuba diving.
I mean, because you got, I mean, you guys don't want to get, I mean, how many different, I mean, I don't even know, how many properties are there around Stockbridge Bowl? Hundreds, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to get 100 different or 300 different filings for the same exact thing.
Right.
No.
So if there's a possibility to get this done under a single filing, whether the project proponent is the town or the Stockbridge Bowl Association, because none of the actual homeowners, the shoreline property owners, actually own the land where this stuff's going to be done, right? It's Commonwealth land. It's a great pond. So perhaps there's a mechanism there whereby a single applicant, whether it's the SBA or the town, can submit an application, a single notice of intent to get permission to do this anywhere along the shoreline of Stockbridge Bowl around existing water dependent uses.
Would you phrase it so it would be a mechanical removal within so many feet of your dock, or you couldn't say the whole lakefront, because there's a few properties that have 300-400 or more feet of lakefront shoreline. So it'd have to be fairly specific of your dock or your area.
Yeah,
or-
I think it needs to be like tied to specific water dependent infrastructure like docks or like pre-established swimming areas, ideally.
I think 20 feet around a dock. Either at the far end or, is a reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, because the type of order of conditions we're envisioning is going to give property owners the ability to remove not just invasives, but native species as well. So that's something else you have to consider.
But without tying it to a specific company, could you require that it be done by professionals? Who have
Licensed?
some sort of licensure for not pulling up the
Well, if the commission is,
natives?
again, we're just thinking out loud. We're talking about hypotheticals and conceptual ideas. If the commission was going to entertain issuing an order, like a bundled order of conditions for a bunch of different entities to do this, you could condition it any way you want. And that could be part of the negotiation.
I would think I would feel comfortable with it being done by people who actually knew what they were pulling.
Since it's an insured.
Yeah. I don't know.
Patrick, you
got some experience.
Number one, but for public safety, communities like Lake Drive, and Mackinac Shores, and Mackinac Terrace, and Beechwood have public beaches, as does the town.
Yeah.
And I think that if you want to experiment with this, start with where people swim, and that is in these community beaches. You start going out the outlet, if you're talking 20 feet around a dock that can be, 200 square feet, 25 feet out, 10 feet wide, that's 50 feet. Some of these properties don't even have 50 feet of frontage. You're talking about basically clearing potentially the entire side of the outlet, which is part of the lake.
Yeah, there's so many docks.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Start with the beaches, I would suggest.
So the community beaches would be the people who would be the applicants?
But I think the community beach is already cleaned up fairly well. I mean, there's.
No, I mean, the proposal I was asking was specifically to do our community.
Yeah.
This was Mackinac Shores that was the sort of instigator here.
My wife is buying me water shoes as we speak, thinking I'm gonna go out there and clear it for her in front of our place. I'm just, that's what she's asking for.
I mean, there are an awful lot of communities around. If you look at this,
Question here.
even just the thing we just got about. I mean, there's the Tanglewood Beach, there's the Kripalu Beach, there's the Boat Club, there's Beechwood, there's Mackinac
Camp.
Shores, Mackinac Terrace, White Pines, the camp, Tanglewood, Kripalu. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything.
Beechwood County.
Yeah.
Lake Drive is a little.
And Lake Drive has one too. But the Lake Drive one is really tiny.
Yeah, they do. They have a tiny little one that they showed.
It's really tiny.
Super.
Okay.
They have a right of way to access the lake, which is probably 10 feet wide.
Okay. Most of what I see is people pulling the weeds around their dock with those rakes, or people going out and hand pulling everything in front and putting it on a kayak to clear it out. That's what's happening. That happens in 3 or 4 houses. And I think if it was permitted, it would happen in maybe 10.
Well, it's not permitted, but they're doing it anyway, so.
But this is the first time I'm on the commission, but I started listening years ago, and that was like, wow, we used to, you just hand pull. I mean, it was with.
I don't think we're having an issue with the hand pulling.
But isn't that what we're talking about, a hand pull?
Oh, yes, we're talking about it, but we haven't stopped anybody because they've done it.
No,
Yeah.
it's unpermitted at the moment.
Okay.
Of course, then the neighbor from years ago used to take the old bed spring and tow it behind the powerboat.
Yes.
Well, I know personally of an operation where they have those Y things that have the blades on the outside, and you pitch it out into the water and you pull it back, and it cuts the weeds at the.
Right. It doesn't, I have one, it just doesn't work that well.
I have seen it work. I've seen it work extremely well, actually. I've seen it work really, really well, actually. And then when the weeds float to the top, you rake them up. You put them in a boat, you take them off.
You bring them to the neighbor you don't like.
And then you use them because they are absolutely great mulch for your garden. So you take them up, you put them on the thing, they dry out within a day.
So that I've seen one person, 2 people do a good job in the outlet where they do it by hand, and that rake, what I have seen, hasn't done a wonderful job. But what we are being telemarketed with all the time are the beneficial bacteria to put in to eat the muck. And I don't think anyone's discussed that, if that's good or bad for the lake. I mean, the people say it's wonderful. And
it's unpermitted. I mean, you're altering a resource area. That is not cool.
Right. Haven't done that.
No, I'm just saying.
Telemarketed with it being on the water.
Really murky.
Who's doing the
telemarketing?
Asking for a friend. But I'm saying that's.
But as a commissioner, people need to understand that they are not permitted to do this stuff.
It's changing a lot.
Whether they like it or not, I mean, I totally.
They're just not going to tell you.
I remember the lake when we would try and get the sailboats out of the boat club, and you would have to get out into deep water and you would have to backwind your boat and go backwards and pull the weeds off the keels because they wouldn't move.
Yeah, Mark and.
It has not been that bad in 30 years.
I've been told you used to almost be able to walk across the lake years ago from all the.
Yes, there were times when you almost could. And it was really horrific. That has not been the case in many, many years.
So are we recommending an RDA for Mackinac Shores?
I would think that would be a good place to start. It's quick and dirty. It can, if the folks from Aquatic Roots can write up a quick synopsis of what it is that they do and how they do it and include it in the RDA, I would think that would be the best way to go.
What they trying to do in the next week and you have another.
Well, they are,
But I mean, I don't know why they didn't come sooner, quite honestly. Why not come sooner?
I've been trying to talk to this woman for, a month and a half, so,
Well, people come up, they're here for the summer and then it's a crisis. And unfortunately, their crisis does not translate to our, that we can ignore the regulations that we are tasked with upholding.
So do we have to determine the extent that we're going to allow these?
let us ask. I mean, I think
Yeah, what are the,
we've got a reasonable ask.
Yeah, let's see what the,
Area that they surveyed, that they know there are some
and
faces that
the
they can.
aquatic roots folks must have some sort of sense of what the,
Pictures, I mean,
yeah.
we've got detail.
I mean, maybe they can advise us that it's been in their experience that 20 feet from the dock is where the worst of it is.
The size of the boat determines what they're looking for too. Canoes, kayaks, sailboats, they won't need as much space as a pontoon boat that comes in next to their dock.
Again, I think the issue is mostly about swimming.
Yeah.
And I think I know they do all their work out of kayaks. You know, that's how they carry around their tools and such. So they're not going real deep, nor would they have to, right?
No,
but they're,
if you can go deep enough, you won't have to do it as often.
Right.
Well, that's up
But
to,
the
that's up
depth
for the
is, the
company.
depth is going to vary depending on the terrain.
Yeah.
So
They reached down so far, that's what they reached down.
So we'll see what they propose.
I think this would be a good test case.
Yeah.
We can refine it,
What
we
if,
find out how many mistakes we've made.
Sally, hey Sally, what if you,
Close to right the first time.
It would be nice if we could get it right the first time.
Well, at least if we can set up kind of an example
Yeah.
to
All right,
to help that.
let's move on here.
All right. Thank you all.
Pardon?
Performance standards.
Did we have any more, National Grid we already talked about,
Property.
10 East Street, lamp removal, we talked about them.
Than the conservation.
Those we got to sign? Do we have to
Yeah.
sign those too?
We did.
We did already sign those too?
Yeah.
So what did we sign over here? No, that was with Connie.
And then
Okay, we already did upcoming business pretty much, so, yes,
I think we're done.
performance standards.
Performance standards.
Did we approve those?
We did approve them.
We need to format the performance standards, and if I was supposed to do it, I haven't done it yet.
You are formatting, or it was going back to the attorney?
I don't know. I've lost track.
I thought it was going back to the attorney. We
If it's something we
voted
can
on
do.
it, we approved
I
it,
thought
and
we
you
were just
had,
gonna fix the.
Yeah, you had-
the formatting, and
Yeah, I
I
thought,
gave Sally my list
Right.
of things. I mean, if somebody can give me my list back and the document, you know,
You can
it's,
do it.
it's 10 minutes worth of work.
yeah, no, I know, we're this close. Do you have your list?
I gave my copy to Sally, because I just written it
Do you
on the
have-
cover sheet of my.
She has it, but to find it, it's a whole nother story.
Alas, I gave her my only copy.
I'll see what I can find.
Okay, so if you get it back to
I mean,
Bill,
but I think the issue was that nobody seemed to know where an editable Word document, a copy of the Word document was.
Yeah, we were supposed to ask Michael. We thought Michael had it.
I'd be happy to do the work if.
I spoke to the gentleman with the drone.
oh, wait, could we just find?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done. I
Just
apologize.
see, so what's the next step? How are we?
I have to find, you're sure I have it?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, I gave it to you. If you don't have it,
I,
I can pretty sure I can replicate it and
So wasn't the,
can I just ask you to replicate it? Because I honestly can't think where it is if I have it.
wasn't the document that came to us that you worked from editable?
no, it was a PDF.
PDF.
But you can convert a PDF to a Word document.
Not unless you buy the.
I'll give you a sign then if you want to.
I can just say, do save as in a Word, or open the PDF in a Word document, in Word.
You need the
Sometimes you'll lose
converter.
it.
You may not have the
a login if you
conversion
want, where you'll be able to
on
work in
his-
any PDF, unless it's locked tight and make the changes.
Right, but I mean, we gotta say it would be better if we had the original Word document, I think.
So how do we get the original Word
Do we
document?
unlock it?
Adobe sells.
It came from Donna?
That lets you edit.
I'll look through and see what I can find.
What's it called?
Okay. I'll look too, Bill. I'll look and see, because I can usually change it to a Word document.
Yeah, I can always change a PDF to a Word document. I do it all the
Or
time.
you just save it as a Word document. I'll look and see if I
Or
can.
such a-
You just open Word and then you find your document in PDF and you open it in Word and it says Word is converting this document. And you lose some formatting that way. But that's the whole point, is that you're formatting. Yeah.
Well, and that's, we are trying to kind of fix the formatting, not
Okay.
start from scratch.
I'll look and see what I can find. I'll go dig around. Things have been complicated.
Forestry Commission, August,
It's actually 28th.
Is it
Yeah, it's the 28th. We're not meeting till August 28th.
August 28th? Okay. I looked at the calendar and thought.
It's usually the first Monday.
Yeah.
We're taking the summer.
Okay. I thought that's what it said in my notes, and then I thought, well, I don't understand
Yeah, because we
why it's that way.
take off 2 months.
tree removal form
I gotta do that too.
could be. Tree inventory. All right, the
That was the
drone.
drone.
The gentleman said he would do it. He said he's on the expensive side. He thought we could get it a little bit cheaper around here, but if we wanted him to do it, it would be, $500 each time. He was concerned about private property and said that he would ask us to just check with our attorney to make sure that he wouldn't be in a jam for flying close to.
Staying away from the swimming pools and stuff.
Well, he just hadn't done that before. He's always been paid to come and survey someone's property. So he just asked me to ask the town attorney to make sure that he's held harmless.
All right, we can ask, yeah, we can find that out. We don't have to make any commitment yet.
No, not at all. I'm just telling you.
I mean, we've got a month or
Because I
two.
know there have been a lot of drone flyovers that have been published. And I don't know that private property boundaries have been something that anybody's been worried about.
What are you using this for?
The
A
DeSisto
tree
property.
inventory of the DeSisto property. So when all of a sudden half of it's gone at some point, we can say,
The before pictures.
yeah.
Yeah,
Good idea.
we'll need some sort of map of the layout so we can stay within boundaries too. I mean, we could be halfway to Richmond before we know if we're still.
But they're going to have to come to us.
I thought they weren't doing anything right
There,
now. Yeah.
this was all illegal.
Freeze time.
Yes, I understand.
But if they come to us, which they're going to have to if they're going to do
Eventually.
something,
Yeah.
then, I mean, the question is, there is a proposal, a preliminary proposal before the town at the moment that they've given to the building inspector. So does that,
They basically said this isn't gonna happen.
That's what I thought, that they
Yeah.
were doing it to avoid the
The,
short-term.
the affordable housing part of it.
Okay.
They got this in
Before that
before the
was-
town approved a formal,
So it's grandfathered.
yeah, it's grandfathered. Any affordable housing will not be applicable to this.
Yeah.
the
Project
sleaze
now.
factor here is pretty significant,
Yeah.
Well, the fact that
Hire a good lawyer and the sleeve.
which is
gets
why we
thicker.
need to be proactive.
But if they have actually a pending plan, does that give us cover to do what we want to do then?
I think it does once we get one. We
But
don't have one.
We don't have
There's
one
nothing
for
that's
us.
come before us, but it has come before the building inspector
Planning board
and
too.
planning board.
So when they do come with an official plan, they can go by the current planning board rules, not any future.
yeah, I understand
Right.
I understand the game.
Yeah.
And my question is whether the fact that they've submitted the plan to the town would allow us to.
That's, we'll have to ask
do the drone
that question.
Yep. Because it would be nice for a change not to get caught with our pants down.
Yeah, be ahead. One step ahead instead of 3 steps behind.
Yep.
Very lucky.
Tree inventory, decisional plans, Mackinac Shores, what's that one?
That was what we just talked about, the
Alright.
hand pulling.
Acreage on Lily Pond?
Oh, yes. Lake or John Lily Pond,
Patrick, you're familiar with that. whole-
22 acres or 68 acres. Which is it? We're very confused about this.
68 was the original parcel of land that included all the development on Lake Pond, and page 3 is subtractive of the deed. So in other words, it says 68 acres minus 9 here, 7 here, 5 there. The town got 22.
Okay, so we're sure about that.
We're sure about that.
Okay.
And
good.
it's mapped out, we could go,
And there was no post-gift sale or redistribution of land. There's no land there to redistribute.
Okay, it was very confusing, the whole
Yeah,
thing.
it's 22, it might be 26, it's 22 or 26.
Okay, so that the question is, I think has come up as to whether we would like to have some sort of conservation restriction on that property.
I mean, there's no way for Concom to dispose of their land, is there?
Not if it's been given to us under our care, as I understand it. If that happens, we have to go to the state
Is
legislature.
that a restriction in itself then?
Yeah, it
was
is.
it deeded to the town or
Yeah,
to
it
us?
was a gift, it was deeded to the town, accepted by the select board in what, 90 something,
With 80,
80 something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
but the question is, were there restrictions on it? But does the Concom hold it?
Yeah. It was-
Okay,
It's under the care and supervision of Concom, it's right in the.
all right. And I guess it has a restriction based on our,
This is the property at the north end of Lily Pond.
David, here,
North and west, yeah.
can we ask about the pond itself though?
sure.
So, David, it's Patrick White. The larger question is that, depending upon beaver activity, I guess I'm talking to the screen for no reason because the microphone's up there. Depending on the beaver activity, the pond itself was anywhere from 22 to maybe 28 acres. It was never listed as a great pond because there's no public access. But there kind of is because the Concom owns this parcel that has got almost a half mile of shoreline along it. And the question is whether, basically, who owns a pond that is not a great pond, because there's no deed around the pond itself? And is it in the town's interest if either via this parcel or via a negotiation through a private property, if they were to provide public access via easement, is it in our interest to try to get it listed as a great pond?
Well, that's a good question. So the first question I'd ask is it clear that the pond was more than 10 acres
Yes.
in its natural state?
Yes.
So yes, okay. So that means it qualifies, it meets the physical criteria to qualify to be a great pond. Okay. And of course, there's a process under the waterways regulations to petition to get something designated as a great pond. I've never actually seen that process in play because it's, as I understand it, it's been extremely rare. Is there an advantage to the town getting it designated as a great pond? Well, I guess that depends on what the town's objectives are. If you want to add another layer of regulation and protection to it at the state level, then that's something to consider.
Who owns it now? If it's,
Nobody's renting around it.
Now it's not a great pond, so if somebody wants to do something in Lily Pond, they just need to, I mean, assuming they're not going to be filling to the extent that it would trigger the US Army Corps of Engineers, they just need to go in front of the Conservation Commission and not DEP. If you get it
Not
designated a great pond, then you've got a whole other set of regulations that applies to Lily Pond.
But if they come before us, then they have, then it goes to DEP, right?
Well, it does, but you guys are implementing everything at the local level unless there's an appeal. With a what, if it's a great pond, then the waterways regulations all of a sudden apply. It's a whole different set of regulations.
Do they have to have a chapter 91 dock permit now?
I'm sorry, that's what I mean by waterways regulations, chapter 91.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it's not a great pond, then chapter 91 does not apply at all.
they can put a dock out halfway out to the middle.
Yeah.
On the other side?
Well,
Yeah.
Except for that runs afoul of the town wetlands bylaw and the planning board, which requires the 200-foot limit. Right? Because those regulations are already in place. Right? Yes, David?
Well, what was the question?
So the town regulations, the planning board has the zoning bylaws say that your dock cannot exceed 25 feet into the lake. And we asked the building inspector years ago whether that also applied to the Housatonic River, and he said yes.
Okay, well, sounds like you've got local protection right there.
Okay.
I have one other question for the town. You saw in the Eagle this morning, the 30 million gallons of sewage that.
Pittsfield, yeah.
That from Pittsfield. David, a whole bunch of Parsley Tree sewage was discharged, 30 million gallons in Pittsfield due to a lightning strike on the plant that took out power Sunday night and Monday. And the question's been raised in town hall related to why downstream communities are notified by a DPU action to notify Pittsfield residents to have a complete stay-away order from the river for 48 hours or longer. Just kind of curious of is it dissipate when it's 10 miles south? Because I mean, I don't want to be about, these issues, but it seems to be kind of shocking that, downstream towns weren't afforded the same notice that Pittsfield was.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it, Patrick, so I'm reluctant to opine.
They say it was the second time this year.
Anything else?
I mean, if it was a discharge from a wastewater treatment plant, that's a whole different set of regulations at the state level that's unrelated to what the Concom does. So, I mean, there's a whole wastewater program with its own set of regulations that dictates how all that stuff works. And I don't have any expertise in that.
I would think it would be a Board of Health.
The question is really around notification, not around regulation, and which I thought DEP played a role in.
Yeah, but that's.
Well, if there are notification requirements, those would come out of the regulations probably. So, yeah.
Thanks.
I'm not qualified to answer the question. I just don't know.
For dams, I think you just have to notify the next town downstream.
You would think.
That's what they do.
What?
So for Pittsfield, it's Lennox.
For a dam, he said.
Yeah, for a dam.
The dam was
But they don't have to go
filling.
anymore, Great Barrington, anything, even though they're all going to be affected.
any other business? Make a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night.